Welcome to the Whiskey Wednesday show, ladies and gentlemen. We have here today Mr. Bill Welychka. Bill has been in my life inadvertently since 92, I believe it was, when you started your gig. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was started at much in '88, ended up on the air in '92,
Okay.
helping produce and co-host the country show Outlaws and Heroes. Sadly, no longer exists. I guess the one good thing about it going away was they transferred me to a regular VJ shift for much. So yeah, that show changed my life. The
Well,
country
yeah, it
show.
certainly did. But you worked for years in production, behind the scene editing, and sort of doing all the broadcast production work, which is a ton of work. Nobody understands what goes into the behind the scenes.
I still do it, and that's what I love about television. Again, the on-air stuff I sort of fell into, and it's been amazing. It's been a whole lot of fun. But I really, really love being in the edit bay.
I
I
love
really
that
do.
too.
Yeah.
I love that too. I just shot a video last weekend, and I hired somebody to move the camera around because I was busy doing other things. And then I got, sort of 20 hours of footage, and I just love getting in there and editing. It's the same with audio. Something about being in the computer and helps me to get rid of the time of my life that I'm trying to avoid sometimes. I guess it's a bit of an escape.
Well, man, editing together an hour special can take a lot more than an hour than the actual 48 minutes of content you need plus commercial breaks. But yeah, an 8 hour editing session can fly right by.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it's like, what? I still got to do another 8 hours tomorrow. But by the end of the end result, this is what you can relate to is yeah, no one sees the dirty work, all the plotting work,
Hmm.
but that's the true creativity for me is the
I
behind
think
the
so
scenes
too.
stuff. And then when it's there, it's out, it's for everyone to consume, and hopefully you've entertained people along the way is the goal.
Exactly. Exactly. So, did this differ? The process you talk about editing, you love sort of immersing yourself into it, and time disappears. Did you find that similar passion when you were writing the book, or was it more challenging?
I think creativity all comes from the same place. Writing the book, I didn't really actually set out to write a book. That's the weird thing. Um, I got when I first moved to Kingston about 12 years ago, I got asked a few years later by the Kingston Whig Standard to turn in a monthly column just talking about my life or media or whatever I wanted to. And I thought, oh yeah, but I don't know who's gonna read it. I don't know if anyone's gonna have any interest, but I'll do it. I went like 4 or 5 years doing this monthly column and ended up getting syndicated around Canada with the Post Media Network. And then one day I just thought, I think I'm done. I think I've spent enough time talking about myself. I'm kind of done. That was a few years before COVID. COVID hit, and then I started getting asked to do a lot of podcasts
Right.
as a guest talking about music or the 90s or much music or whatever. And I said yes to a lot of them. And then all these stories started coming back from what I was
Mm.
talking about. And I started writing one day stories that I had recounted that I know I didn't talk about in the columns. And then I started looking at the column, started looking at these other things that I was writing, and I just started writing one day. This was the end of 2021, about halfway through 2022. I did it all on the weekends, a few hours here and there after a couple shots of whiskey, get those creative juices
Yep.
flowing. Halfway through the year, I realized I think I'm onto a book here. This is weird. So I just kept writing for no one other than myself. And then by the end of the year, I thought, okay, I have a book here. Sent it to some publishers. Some major publishers did come back and they said, we'd love to do it in 2024. This is at the start of 2023. And then I thought, I want it out this year.
Hmm.
2023 it marks the 35th year of my anniversary of working in television. There's a Much Music documentary that I knew that I was interviewed for that was coming out slated for the fall. So I just thought this is the year. And it's out now. It came out earlier this month, and it's been on some Amazon top 10 list, and it
Yeah.
blows me away. Blows me away that people want to talk about it and do interviews. I'm humbled, extremely humbled that I get a chance to talk about myself. So your original question, the idea of the creativity of writing, is it the same thing as sitting in an edit bay and editing?
That's
I think so. I think
yeah.
you're pushing everything aside and being focused and wanting to create the best possible product that you want to be proud of for people to see, to read, to listen to. And I think I have achieved it after 18 or 19 revisions back and forth with the publisher. But
Well, that's
yeah,
that's the other part of the question. At what point? So it started as kind of a passion project. You just kind of almost journaling, and then you got to a point when you realized this is a hefty piece of work, and you approached a publisher at that point. Now, was there a point where it became a stress and a worry and did you get really anxious about exposing your life this much, or was everything in there you were happy to go with, and did the editor push you for changes in direction or anything?
not a lot of changes. No. I love writing. I love English. Grammar wise, they caught a couple of things, maybe a couple of typos. But as far as content goes, not really. If anything, I was reined in by my girlfriend, Amanda, who's now my fiance. She read it and thought a couple of chapters I could have maybe not put in so much.
Some of the
And it's
details.
true. And I look back, yeah, and she goes, my mom and dad are going to read this. And I thought, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. Um, I'm not going to get into what I was talking about.
No,
It does touch, it does touch on some trampy years I had in my 20s. I think a lot of people might have, or even the
especially
30s.
during that time. That was the time of lots of money and cocaine, and everybody was just partying and drinking, and it was a time of excess, the 80s and the 90s, before everything closed down. So it was hard not to have gone through that in some extent, through some way, shape, or form.
Well, I was doing an interview with Jan Arden recently, and she asked about any regrets. And I said, I don't know. I've hurt people unintentionally, and you don't
Mm,
set out to hurt someone, but you have a one night stand and run into them and you didn't remember
yeah.
or you forgot their name. That's upsetting for them. It's upsetting for me that I would do that to someone. And so, as far as regrets go, yeah, I've hurt people unintentionally, and I've apologized to them when I could. And if I haven't apologized to them, I feel bad enough and I apologize to myself and I've forgiven myself. So hopefully anyone that I've hurt unintentionally can forgive me. You certainly don't set out to hurt people. But generally, there's a lot of good stuff in there that I think are will satisfy fans of music, maybe fans of much. What was interesting for me is I didn't want the book to be the ramblings of some old guy going, "Hey, remember the time I interviewed David Bowie? Let me tell you about that time I interviewed Mick Jagger."
Yeah.
No, the book is full of what I call perfect circles, and that is being a fan of someone like in grade school or high school, having their patches on your jean jacket or buttons on your jean jacket or posters in your locker room at school or in your
Hmm.
locker, posters in your bedroom, and then like years later having a chance to interview every single one of them, every single hero I ever had, and then some.
Yeah,
Year
you went through everybody.
and what an amazing position to fall into and then foster that. And I call those perfect circles. And the book is full of them. And so even if you don't know who I am, I think it'll be a fun read.
Hmm.
The title stems from that fact is there's a lot of people out there that might have only known me from a couple of networks nationally, and then to them I fell off the face of the earth. There are some people who have followed my career from day one and haven't stopped, and I haven't stopped working in television since the beginning. And there are
Hmm.
people in Kingston here, where I work now, hosting a TV morning show, that don't know that I had a music journalism past. So the has been, I think, part is it's self-deprecating. I understand that, but it's a nod to that time where I was national,
Hmm.
interviewing everyone that I wanted to, traveling around the world, and then my career went backwards. I started there, and then I eventually found myself to a smaller market, to a smaller audience. But the happy part comes in where I am the happiest that I've ever been throughout my entire life, right at this moment, as I'm talking to Ken Tizzard.
Yep.
So I think the book works on numerous levels that way.
I think it's amazing that you can sort of, you've pointed out your flaws in your past. As we age and as time passes, we're all learning things
You
differently,
hope.
especially in the recent sort of, the recent world of social media and everybody being so tied in. We're starting to see problems that have existed in our society for so long. And I'm starting to recognize these problems in myself, and I'm trying to address them. But I
As an
think
example, can you talk about that? What do you mean?
um, sort of all the sort of racism, sexuality,
Mm,
all of those things that are now being looked at, gender identity, it's all being looked at in a very different lens these days. And I have two young kids, two young girls as well, so I learn a lot from them.
mm.
Certain things that, I just sort of picked up from my parents and my uncles and aunts that sort of carried over, that in the last 15 to 20 years, I've really started reevaluating. Sort of things that stuck in my brain, even though I wasn't verbal with them, they were just ways that I thought about the world that had come down from the generation before me. And I'm realizing that in order for the generation under me to get better, I need to get better as well.
Good for you, man. That's really well put.
I'm learning from the younger generation too. My daughters will, I'll say something when we're watching TV or something. My girls will go, and they'll start talking to me about something that immediately I'm thinking different.
Hmm.
I'm home a lot. I'm not out in the world very much, mostly because of my situation. And there's so many changes happening. It's a fascinating time, and it's a wonderful place. And when I see somebody like you sort of exposing yourself via a book, and it's not what the whole book is about, of course. It's only one little blip. But for people to say, I've changed my way. I'm thinking about things differently. That's a really strong thing to go through. I appreciate that, and I respect that a lot.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And one of the weirdest things about doing that column initially for the Whig Standard and writing the book and throwing it out there is just going back to that whole who's going to care? Who's going to want to read this? And there's that sense of, I think, I was talking with someone about this the other day. I'm doing like, this is probably my 30th interview for the book, and I'm grateful that people care enough to want to provide me a platform to talk about the book. People have awesome questions about my life and what I went through, and learning to accept it and be grateful for it.
Mm.
Because I realized a long time ago, man, that everyone has a story. You freaking have a story.
Oh yeah.
The guy across the street from me has a story. Everyone has moments in their lives that they dealt with pain, sorrow, and joy, and ecstasy,
Mm.
agony, and everything. And very few of us get a chance to tell our story. We're so fascinated with the Kardashians and reality stars, and our direct focus is on them. But having said all that, we talk about things we've learned along the way. The subtitle of the book is, lessons that I have learned that I'd like to pass on. And hopefully, as you get older, you learn things, yeah, and certain things that you wish to pass on. One of the things that I hope to leave people with is that fact that we all have a story and that we're putting up on pedestals, I think, the wrong people. I
I
think
agree.
the people we should be putting up on pedestals are, yeah, obviously first responders. We're seeing these fires around the world and seeing firefighters, men and women, running into houses, and like that blows me away. Like those are the
Yeah.
people we should be idolizing and putting up on pedestals. Not that music doesn't have a place, man. No, music saved my life. Songs and musicians have saved my life. And it has millions of others around the world. And there's certainly a place for entertainment. I don't think it's frivolous. I think it certainly has its place in our society. It's more than an escape
Oh
and
yeah.
more than background music to put on while you're washing dishes. No, it touches me. And you're a creator of music and you've touched people. Hopefully you know that your talent does speak volumes to many. And so I'm not saying don't put musicians up on pedestals. I'm just saying, you know, be
It's
careful who you pick as your idols. I
yeah.
say elevate everyone around me. Everyone should say that. Do
That's
that.
kind of it's weird, because for a long time I stayed mostly clear of world news. Not that I wasn't interested and not that I wasn't concerned, but because I felt as the media got more and more available, as globalization through the internet made everything really small, I realized that I was getting my head full of things that I could empathize with and I could feel sympathy for and I could be heartbroken about, but was really out of my control to do anything. And I sort of thought about the world scale in my own world. And then I realized that if I do, the good things for everybody that's physically in my proximity, that's really the extent of what I can do. I'm not a billionaire. I can't help people with money. I don't have a platform to change the world. I'm just a guy who, does what he does. But as I realized that, I thought, if everybody did that, a lot of these problems would just disappear. If everybody just treated the people in their proximity the way that they want to be treated, and if that spread out, proximities would overlap, and the whole world would. It's a whole other thing, but it did get me thinking about sort of taking care of the people around you as best you can.
It's a trait that in some ways, sadly, it's a lot easier said than done. And I talk about this in the book that, if we want love and peace in our lives, we have to express it. We have to pass it on to others. And inadvertently, while we elevate others, maybe we get elevated at the same time, although that's not why you do it. But I think it's reciprocal in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, like a smile, something stupid like a smile walking down the street. You
Mm-hmm.
smile at someone, they smile back at you. And for that instant, their focus is a minuscule moment of joy.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I got a question that might impact the way that some of the stuff we're talking about, or it might shed some light on it. The happy has been, for example. I remember 2 points in my life that relate to that title. One being when somebody asked me why I was committing career suicide, leaving major commercial rock to go play folk music. And I thought that was very hurtful. And another thing was after a show, I was opening for Tom Wilson, and we were at the merch booth, and there was a long line of everybody to see Tom, and sort of 2 or 3 people there to buy my first acoustic CD. And one of them came up and bought the CD and said, "It must be really bad to be sort of so washed up and starting all over again, like I would opening up for Tom." And I just kind of went, and both those things stuck with me like over the last 15 years. But the reality is, I'm sort of happier right now and in the last 10 years than I have been in a long time. And a lot of it has to do with getting out of, I hate to say limelight or celebrity, because I mean, the Watchmen were a Canadian band. It wasn't like we had people chasing us down the streets. But to get away from that machine of it all, a lot of people see it as, sort of a failure or a step backwards. I see it as a progression for myself. And when I look at your life, I see, you went from one thing to another, to another, to another. I mean, you've done everything and you're comfortable in life now. And you're calling yourself the happy has been. I say to people that I'm actually living the dream now. Is that kind of how it feels to you? Like, are you totally settled in life? Like you're feeling this is great right now?
Absolutely, man. Everything you said, I can relate to. And I talk about this in the book that I explain where I first heard that term and why I was called that and how I was called that. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of affected me for a while. And then I realized, I quickly got over it and realized that it's not about chasing anything anymore. I achieved everything and beyond what I expected years ago. And now it's just about living and being happy and content with what I have and what I have achieved and not looking back too much either. This is after this book is out and a year or two from now, I'm not going to look back anymore. Now is a time to pause and do look back. But yeah, and it's all about perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having to explain to someone where I've been since those days and if I'm happy and was I homeless? Would I fall off the face of the earth, out of sight, out of mind? Jen Arden said, "Yeah, if you're not appearing, you're disappearing." And yeah, like I have never not worked in television since those
Yeah.
days, and
And
so
you
it's
still
fascinating
are.
to me. I'm sorry.
And you still are working in television, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean,
And like I said, having the best time ever.
yeah.
Love where I'm working. Love the city I'm working in. I love who I'm working with. I love what I'm doing, and I love the community that is in front of me. And it's not about being national. It's not about having an audience in the millions. It's about being happy doing what I'm doing now. And if that audience is smaller, I refer to it as more intimate,
Yeah.
maybe. And I'm connecting with people every day. I go to the grocery store or I'm at the gas station. And I meet people every day who watch the show and have something to say, nothing but positive things about it. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that love
Yeah.
from total strangers? And they're quick.
Yep.
It's like, hi, oh, I saw you this morning. Great show. Thank you.
it's great to be, you know, you know what it's like. The camera lights come on or the stage light, you walk out on the stage, and everybody sees your face. What they don't see is what's going on, behind your head. Do you ever have those moments on camera where you're just kind of plotting, like doing your taxes in your head, something like that, like where you're totally out of the moment of what's happening, and then you watch it back after and go, I can't see that I'm thinking about my taxes in my head? Or are you always, when the camera's on, are you always in the moment?
I could be having the worst day ever. Something might have pissed me off or something. I don't know. But no, when I need to be focused, thankfully, I guess I've always had that place to go to where I can focus on the task at hand. But I'm sure I've heard musicians say this, and you can back this up. You can be having a shitty day, you can be feeling sick. When you hit the stage, all that goes away.
It cures everything for me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
would.
I don't know where you're getting it from or where you're digging down, but wherever you're getting it from, it works. And
Mhm.
I wish everyone could experience that. Um,
It's a pretty great moment of, I've done some therapy in the past as well, and lots of focus on wellness and living in the now and stuff. I find that music is that thing for me. It's like meditation. As soon as it starts, everything in the world stops, and 90 minutes later or 60 minutes later, there's a bit of an adrenaline come down, and then it's the world comes back in, and I'm just like, oh, I wish I had the music again.
well, it happens for me doing live event music specials,
Mhm.
interviewing Prince live or Janet Jackson or Sting or it doesn't matter. There's so many, and the show is done, and I'm home an hour later. And there's an adrenaline rush where you did a great job. People enjoyed it. The artist enjoyed it, and everything came together, and it was perfect. Um, and then it takes a little bit to come down from that, but I remember John Bon Jovi once saying that's why so many artists fall into drugs or addiction because you get off the stage. Maybe there's a post-show meet and greet. Then it's like, bang, go to the hotel room, sleep, do it again tomorrow. You can't. You stumble around a hotel room till 3 or 4 in the morning
Yeah.
because you're just so high off the adrenaline. You can't just shut it off.
Yeah.
And I learned from Blue Rodeo years ago. I did a special with him where I was actually on the road with him for a couple of dates. I think flew into Regina, hung out with him with the day, shot the show with the cameraman, and then post-show meet and greet and then eventually onto the bus, onto Winnipeg and repeat. But what they did after that Regina show, and it blew me away. And they've been touring since friggin' the mid '80s
Right.
as one form or another as Blue Rodeo. They figured out a long, long time ago, and this is what they do on tour. So they like to tour Canada in the winter, especially because they know that they're the only game in town for
Hmm.
you know probably a month. And so
Yeah.
the whole city will come out and see them. So that's smart. But what they do after every gig, after the meet and greet, is they've booked some community center somewhere near the venue, and they have a floor hockey game for an
Oh,
hour and a half with the opening band.
right.
And that's how they get that adrenaline down. They tire themselves out
That's
basically
smart.
playing a floor hockey game, and to witness this and then see them get on the bus and see them crash, I thought, okay, that's how you
So,
become a musician not caught up in
yeah.
heroin or drugs or whatever, just to keep that party going, that feeling. So
Well,
yeah, smart of them.
yeah, that is smart. Yeah, I went the other way. I remember in one of the last big Watchmen tours in, the early 2000s when the rave culture was still, and I was DJing as well. So I'd do the Watchmen shows from like 11 till 2 in the morning, and then I'd go hit a club at 3 and spin vinyl from 3 till 5 and make it back for the tour bus, leaving at 5 o'clock. I didn't find it that year wasn't very relaxing at all.
And then your spare time is sleeping or napping,
I always say, the bands don't get paid for the time they're on stage. They get paid for the
right?
22 hours of the day. The
The
travel,
traveling, yeah.
boredom, the bad food, whatever it is we're doing. If you're on a tour bus and that's a bit of a dream. Very few people get there. Most musicians on the road are sleeping on friends' couches. which is fine when you crash at 3 in the morning, but when they get up with their kids in the morning and they're getting ready for school and it's 8 o'clock and you feel like a drunk, hungover slob on their couch, and you've got to get up and go to another city and find another place to stay on another couch and do a show. That's a whole different sort of lifestyle. These lifestyles do sort of drain on you. And I must say, I'm happy, as I'm in my mid 50s like I say, I don't leave the house very much. And a part of me is actually totally okay with that.
Do you still talk to the boys, Danny and the boys?
Oh yeah, we played Newfoundland and Edmonton in the last 6 weeks, and we've got Regina and Winnipeg and Toronto coming up in November. We do about 5 shows a year still, and we haven't put out new music in 22 years, and we still sell out, and it's great.
And the crowd is there. The crowd's having it.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all our age now. They ain't kids anymore, but they're there and they're crammed in. We're doing the Danforth Music Hall in November. I'll put you on the list if you can make it down. It'd be
Wow.
fun. Yeah,
It's a nice venue. Yeah. I've
it's
seen a
down
lot of
memory
bands
lane.
there.
Yeah, it's a great venue. It's a great venue. Did we miss anything? You're not a loner anymore. You have a fiance. Even though the internet says you are possibly still single with no records of past relationships. That was on
Yeah,
that was on
everything on the internet is
whodated.com.
true. Yeah.
But you've got yourself a fiance now, and you're getting married. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
I don't know where you read that. I just hang out with this poster behind me. That's that's
Ah,
that's who I
okay.
hang
Well,
out
that's
with.
cool too.
No, I met Amanda here in Kingston about 6 years ago. Finally proposed last November, and I was living in a condo. It starts with a toothbrush, I noticed. All of a sudden there's a toothbrush in the toothbrush holder, and then she wants a drawer,
Hmm.
and then some of the closet. Next thing you know, she's there and living there. And then so between my stuff and her stuff, I said I have to buy a house. So yeah, I bought a house about a year ago in the East End of Kingston. Love it.
Lovely.
And yeah, this is the office here. So there's my Mad Magazine collection.
Oh,
There's my
nice.
Chicago Blackhawks stuff, Honky Tonk Man stuff,
Very
hockey
good.
cards here, hockey cards all over the place.
Well,
Yeah,
it's nice that you bought a house and got a man den. That's a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah, the man dens. We some of us call them offices. I still call them my man den. I don't have an actual office.
Well, this is just the office. I have other stuff downstairs in the basement. And that's the thing when I had my condo, after about a couple of months of her going there, I had some things on the wall, signed things, some gold records and platinum records and stuff. She goes, "Yeah, these are nice, but they're not really, it's not good decor." So when I bought the house, I had all these boxes of things, and I said, "Can I have the basement?" She goes, "Yeah, take it. It's yours." So everything is on the walls now down there in the
Uh,
basement.
yeah, I have 2 rooms in the house: the production studio and my recording studio upstairs, and everything is all my gold records are up there. Like they're not. There's nothing else in the house that says music anywhere. I was just like, I've got my rooms, which is great but they're both jammed. I feel like a teenager when I'm in them, and that's a good feeling to have. Um, it's been amazing to have you on the show. Thank you very much for taking the time. Bill Welychka, ladies and gentlemen, he has a new book out. It is called A Happy Has Been. There it is right there. And there's a second part to the title, Exciting Times and Lessons Learned by one of Canada's foremost entertainment journalists. It's out now. It's on the top 10 Amazon, and it's on the top 10 from your publisher's site as well, I believe, David said.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm blown away. People are enjoying it.
it's amazing,
Um,
and it's so
and
good. And do you have any other sort of appearances coming up? You doing any in-store at chapters or any of those things?
I'm talking about a Kingston book launch signing September 9th, I believe. It's going to be at the Tiernanog. I'm just talking with Gary Cork from the Tiernanog here in Kingston about that. Still lots of interviews to come, a couple of national interviews still to come after that, and then more interviews, and then eventual book signings. There's a Much Music documentary coming out, totally unrelated to the book, but timing is there, and that's going to be out. Toronto premiere is September 15th or 20th, I think, 21st. And then it rolls out across Canada in October, and I'm supposed to be touring with that on some dates as well. There'll
That's
be
a
some
great opportunity.
Q&As right after the screening.
Yeah,
in the cities. And yeah, and partial proceeds are going to go to the White Ribbon Campaign, Men Ending Men's Violence Against Women, and various women's shelters across Canada,
wonderful.
for the book sales. BillWelychka.ca for more information. And Ken, you were busy. I know you couldn't do it, so I got Paul Langlois from the hip to do the forward.
I that was the first part that I read, of course, because it's the first part of the book. Yeah, it's a great little story about the band and their impression of, you know, their lack of enthusiasm for doing interviews, but how they much music thing was always sort of a spin-off, and then talking about, you know, walking home and talking about what a cool guy you were. And you know, that's one of the things, as somebody who's been interviewed a lot. You know, I always come away from the ones where it was just sort of a conversation with a cool person. And you know, and that's always the vibe you've given off. And like I said, I was nervous sort of turning the tables. I don't know, in your 30 years of interviewing musicians, how many of them have actually come back to interview you? But for me, this is a weird turning of the tables, and it's such a pleasure to have you and to hear your story, and to support you putting your book out. And everybody, please reach out and grab copies of it. It's a great book, and as you have heard today, a great guy here. So thank you very
What
much.
a
You
great
got any
thing to say. Thank
closing
you so
words?
much. Thank you.
You're very
By the
welcome.
way, um, my whiskey of choice, I don't know, would you even consider it a whiskey? Jack Daniels.
Oh yeah, I find Jack too sweet, but that's because I got really sick on it when I was 19. And since then, I've been staying away. Like Jack Daniels and Jim Beam, I find them, they're on the sweeter side of the bourbon family, maybe. But
Jim Beam, is that Kentucky? Jim Beam?
that's the Kentucky bourbon, yeah,
Yeah.
which people refer to as a whiskey as well. I love rye whiskeys. That's my thing. Rye whiskey with ice. It's just no, no, not your thing, eh?
I've tried many times. I tried many whiskeys.
Yeah,
I just keep going back to Jack, straight up, no ice. Hanging out with Lemmy from Motorhead.
I was just
I
gonna
think I
say it's a
might have
pretty
told you
rock and
this.
roll drink.
Yeah, well, I think I told you this story. One time in the dressing room, we finished this great interview, long interview, and then he had some Jack back there, and he opens it up. He goes, "You want some Jack?" And I said, "Yeah, throw it in a red cup." He goes, "I suppose you want some ice." I go, "No, no, straight up, man." He went, "Ah, cheers." It's we his is room temperature straight up too. Love it.
Oh man, you've got
Yeah.
so many stories. We should get together and drink some Jack Daniels some night without any video cameras around and just have some fun. Next time I'm
Yeah,
down
I would
Kingston
love
way,
that.
I'll make sure to let you know, and we'll find some place, and we'll get together and have some drinks, man. It'd be nice to see you in person.
I love that, Ken. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been great chatting with you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, and all the best with the book, man. I'm sure it's going to be a smash. People are really raving about it already. The reviews are that I've been seeing. You've got like a ton of people, like ton of profile people talking about it, which is really cool too. You know, it's just great. So congratulations.
I thank you so much. Take care.
Have a good day.
Cheers.
Bill, thank